On today's episode of cheap parts that probably just aren't worth it, I want to go over a strut mount. So I did a previous video on a tie rod which came in this format where the boot wasn't attached to the oh god, picking up little ball bearings is such a mission. Alright, I'll put that there. Alright, so I talked about a tie rod where the boot isn't attached to the tie rod, and someone made a help, and I thought this was just an error, like they had just forgotten to do it. So here's this tie rod, it's not, the boot isn't attached, and someone left a comment and said that no, that they're made that way, that's just how the cheap version goes. Now I'd like to fully appreciate, and I mean I do appreciate the comment because it did at least tell me that probably nothing was wrong. It was just, that's what you get when you get the cheap stuff. But to be fair, I got another cheap tie rod that's on the other end, and the boot is attached, and the price was nominally more. So some people just decide to do it in this format, which I think is really dumb, and then some people don't. So for the time being, I'm probably gonna hold on to this tie rod. At some point I may get at least the tie rod where the boot is connected, but I'm not gonna worry. It should be functional for, you know, a while, and then at some point I'll just switch it out. But what I want to get into is this strut mount. So this strut mount, I think this is made by Anchor, and it is, how should I describe it? I mean, it was $12, and it comes with the strut mount and this little ball bearing thing. Now, as you saw, I was picking up pieces of the ball bearing because the issue was, like, when I put this all together, now this may have been part of an installation error, but what happened was that I may not have torqued it down once I had it at the right place. So there was this gap in between the top of the strut mount and the bushing part of the strut mount, and when I went for a test drive, there was this clunking sound which was very reminiscent of it, that, you know, when it was hitting a bump, it was smashing against the top of the strut mount, and then that was the issue. So I was thinking maybe I'll take it apart and then I'll torque it and it'll come back together. But then when I took it apart, this whole ball bearing just completely fell apart. I mean, I had to pry it out of this mount because it got pushed in, and then the two parts separated, and as you can see, all the balls from the ball bearing fell in there. So fortunately, I kept the old ball bearing. This is likely what came originally with the car from Toyota, and it's a ball bearing, and this thing is 23 years old, and there's essentially nothing wrong with it. I just replaced it because I was getting new parts. I thought, hey, but now that I see how well this has been made, I mean, it's sealed, it's in perfectly good condition, it moves nice and smooth, it's not seized. So, and since I'm going ahead and putting that, now the passenger side, the strut mount was busted. The rubber of it was cracked and it was making clunking sounds. But the driver's side, the side that I'm doing, there's nothing really wrong with the whole rubber bushing inside of it. So I may reuse this 23-year-old strut mount, you know, with these studs and this 23-year-old ball bearing, just because it's of better quality than the cheapo strut mount. Now, to be fair, to buy these new, I think the strut mount's like $80 and this little ball bearing is like $30. So the ball bearing in itself costs as much as like 3 times what the strut mount. And I mean, you can really see the quality that you're getting compared to this, which just immediately fell apart. Now, to be fair, in practice, you know, it wouldn't fall apart because the whole thing, this whole spring is pushing up against it. But I mean, that definitely doesn't bode well. So this is the Anchor strut mount for this, you know, Lexus ES300, and I mean, you definitely get what you pay for, and it's a load of crap. So I mean, the whole thing from the outset, the bottom little rubber gasket or whatever you want to call this fell out, so I had to just position it and have it get squished in, and then now when I took it apart, the whole thing just fell apart. So I mean, there's a lesson that you get exactly what you pay for. And is it worth it? I don't know, but I think using this Toyota piece, you know, again, it goes for like 30 something dollars at the dealership. This is the one that came original with the car, and considering the shape that it's in compared to this brand new one, I think I'm going to reuse this, and I'm going to reuse the strut mount. So that's been another episode of Are Cheap Parts Worth It? Hope you enjoyed.